Imagine a ruling family that holds absolute unquestioned power over an entire continent.
Right.
And not because they have the most gold or, the largest standing army or even the most brilliant generals.
No, none of that.
No, they hold power because they possess the exclusive launch codes to living, breathing weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly.
So imagine what happens when that family splits in two and they turn those ultimate weapons on each other. Today, you are looking at the mechanics of total, catastrophic, systemic collapse.
It is, it's really the ultimate nightmare scenario of mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Except, these weapons have minds of their own, they have teeth, and they need to be fed literal mountains of meat just to stay operational.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because if you are a curious learner trying to understand how a seemingly invincible empire tears itself to shreds, you really cannot find a better a more horrifying case study than what we're digging into today.
Okay.
We are doing a deep dive into an exhaustive historical account transcribed by George R.R. Martin. It's titled The Princess and the Queen, or The Blacks and the Greens.
Right.
And our mission today is to deconstruct the Dance of the Dragons, which is this devastating civil war that literally burned a dynasty to ash.
And we really have to, establish the sheer scale of the stakes right up front.
Yeah, please do.
Because if this were just your standard run-of-the-mill medieval succession crisis,
Yeah.
Over who gets to wear a shiny hat and sit on a pointy metal chair, it would barely be a footnote in the grand sweep of history.
Just another Tuesday.
Exactly. But the inclusion of dragons, these biological superweapons, it changes the physics of this war entirely.
It really does.
This isn't just about political control. It's an arms race that permanently alters the balance of power in their entire world.
Right, because to understand how you get to a point where the sky is literally filled with fire and blood, you kind of have to start by looking at the incredibly quiet, dark, secretive room where the fuse was initially lit.
Yes, the Green Council.
Yeah. We are starting with an inciting incident that seems, honestly, incredibly mundane.
Right.
King Viserys I passes away in his sleep.
A completely natural event. I mean, kings die, right?
I do.
But what happens in the immediate aftermath is, well, it's entirely unnatural. It's highly calculated, and it tells us everything we need to know about the anatomy of a coup.
Oh, definitely.
So Viserys dies. A servant discovers the body, but then nothing happens.
Nothing.
The bells in the city are not rung to announce the king's passing. The maesters do not send ravens to the lords of the realm.
Instead, Queen Alicent and her faction, who become known as the Greens, right? They keep it a total airtight secret.
Completely airtight.
And I want you, the listener, to really picture the logistics of this because it's so grotesque. They literally leave the king's body in his bedchamber to swell and rot.
Yeah, for days.
For days. We are talking about a medieval castle in a warm climate.
Oh, it's awful.
The physical smell of the rotting king is just wafting through the corridors of the Red Keep.
It's just so grim.
And while that's happening, they are rounding up any servant, any baker, any scullion who might have heard a tiny whisper that the king is dead.
Yeah, and throwing them straight into the black cells.
Right into the dungeons.
They are doing this to control the absolute most vital resource in any coup, which is the flow of information.
Right.
Queen Alicent and her father, the king's hand, Sir Otto Hightower, they immediately convene a secret meeting of the small council in the dead of night.
Midnight plotting.
Exactly. And why the secrecy? Because they know Viserys had officially, legally named, his eldest daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, who is from his first marriage, by the way, as his heir.
Which everyone knew about.
Right. The entire realm had sworn oaths to her years ago.
And Rhaenyra isn't even in the capital.
No, she's not.
She is heavily pregnant, isolated on the island fortress of Dragonstone, completely unaware that her father is, rotting in his bed.
Precisely. So the Greens have this tiny, shrinking window of opportunity to install Queen Alicent's eldest son, Aegon, onto the throne before Rhaenyra even realizes the game has begun. Yeah.
But executing a coup requires absolute internal unity.
Yeah.
And they don't quite have it. Not everyone in that midnight council meeting is on board with literal treason.
Which brings us to Lord Lyman Beesbury.
Yes.
He's the master of coin, this 80-year-old man who has served the crown faithfully for decades.
A very long time.
He realizes what Otto Hightower and Alicent are suggesting, and he stands up. He defends Rhaenyra's claim.
He
He reminds these people of the sacred oaths that they all swore to her in front of the king. He absolutely refuses to be a part of stealing her birthright.
In this specific moment, I mean, this is the fulcrum upon which the entire war turns.
Yeah.
We see the instantaneous transition from, quiet political maneuvering to raw physical violence.
It's so abrupt.
Sir Criston Cole, who is the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, the man sworn to protect the royal family, he physically forces the elderly Lord Beesbury back into his chair, draws a dagger, and just slices his throat open right there at the council table.
I am still, trying to wrap my head around how quickly that escalated.
It's shocking. I mean, the first blood of a massive continent-spanning civil war isn't spilled by two armies crashing together on a muddy battlefield.
No.
It's an 80-year-old accountant getting his throat slit in a boardroom.
It is the absolute crossing of the Rubicon.
Yep.
Once Beesbury's blood is pooling on that table, the illusion of peaceful political debate just vanishes.
Yeah, it's gone.
And the Master of Whisperers, Lair Strong, known as the Clubfoot, he recognizes the gravity of this immediately.
He's terrifyingly smart.
He really understands human psychology.
Right.
He draws his own dagger, slices his palm open, and forces the rest of the conspirators into a blood oath.
Wow.
He binds them together in the shared complicity of this murder. They are no longer just politicians debating policy.
Right.
They are brothers unto death in a treasonous plot.
But the wild part of all this, the really crazy part, is the guy they're doing this for, Prince Aegon. He doesn't even want the job.
He really doesn't.
When they finally go to Aegon's chambers and say, hey, your dad's been dead for days, we're making you the new king, Aegon actually balks. He says no.
Yeah, he tries to refuse.
He literally says, what sort of brother steals his sister's birthright?
It's a brilliant, very human detail. Aegon isn't driven by some overarching Machiavellian ambition in this moment.
Right.
He actually has to be heavily manipulated into accepting the crown. And it's Sir Criston Cole who finds the exact psychological lever to pull.
Cole again.
Yeah, Cole uses Aegon's own survival instincts against him. He essentially tells Aegon, listen, if Rhaenyra takes the throne, she will have no choice but to execute you and your brothers.
Just to tie up loose ends.
Exactly. Your very existence, your blood claim, is a permanent threat to her rule. If you don't take this crown, you die.
So Cole basically forces him into a binary corner.
Yeah.
You are either the usurper or you are the victim. There is no middle ground.
None.
And it's a terrifyingly effective argument. Aegon wavers, his self-preservation kicks in, and he accepts.
He does.
And from that moment on, the Greens execute a flawless suppression of the state apparatus.
They absolutely do. Think of the Iron Throne not just as a physical seat, but as a fiat currency. Its value only exists because everyone collectively agrees it does.
Right, right.
By crowning Aegon first in front of the masses of the capital, the Greens didn't just steal a chair. They artificially minted the currency of legitimacy before Rhaenyra could even open her bank.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And they secure the treasury immediately. Sir Tywin Lannister takes the crown's gold, physically removes it, and splits it 4 ways.
Just hides it all over the place.
Yeah, hiding it in impenetrable locations like Casterly Rock and the Iron Bank of Bravos.
It's like a ruthless corporate hostile takeover.
Very much so.
One faction locks the doors to the boardroom, severs the phone lines, and drains the bank accounts before the CEO even knows they've been ousted.
It's textbook.
But here is the massive, insurmountable problem with their strategy. The Greens might have the capital and the gold, but Rhaenyra and her faction, the Blacks, they still have dragons.
Yes, they do.
You cannot execute a clean political takeover when the ousted CEO has access to biological deterrence.
Which means the boardroom dispute is inevitably going to become a bloodbath.
Right.
Because when the news finally manages to leak out of the capital and reaches Rhaenyra on the island of Dragonstone, her reaction is incredibly visceral.
To say the least.
Yeah.
The psychological shock of the betrayal,
Yeah.
learning her father is dead, her throne is stolen, and it's done by people she basically grew up with. It sends her body into immediate traumatic shock.
Yes.
Rhaenyra is heavily pregnant, and the rage literally induces premature labor. She is locked in a 3-day agonizing struggle that ends in the delivery of a malformed stillborn daughter whom she names Visenya.
The historical texts describe it as a nightmare. She is physically wrestling with her own body, screaming curses at the child, telling the monster to get out.
It's horrific.
It is a profound trauma.
And she blames the Greens entirely for this death.
Oh, completely.
She says, they stole my crown and murdered my daughter, and they shall answer for it. It's no longer just a political grievance. It is deeply, intensely personal.
It's a vendetta now.
So Rhaenyra has a hasty coronation of her own on Dragonstone, wearing her father's stolen crown, which was smuggled out by a defecting knight. And then the Black Council sits down to assess their arsenal.
And this is where the doctrine of deterrence is heavily debated among Rhaenyra's commanders.
Right.
If you look at the raw numbers, Rhaenyra's side actually has an overwhelming advantage in weapons of mass destruction.
Paper, yeah.
They have 9 potential fighting dragons. The Greens only have 4.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The Greens have Vhagar. And we really need to explain what Vhagar actually is, because this isn't just a big lizard.
No, Vhagar is a living relic. She is the last surviving dragon from the original Targaryen conquest of the continent.
She's ancient.
She is over 100 years old. She's described as being so massive you could ride a horse down her gullet.
That's just terrifying.
She is twice the size of any other dragon alive. A seasoned, hardened veteran of countless wars. She is the ultimate apex deterrent.
Which is why Rhaenyra's husband, Prince Daemon, who, by the way, is a completely ruthless, bloodthirsty, battle-hardened rogue, he actually advocates for restraint here.
Surprisingly, yes.
Even Daemon looks at Vhagar and says, "We must fight this war with words before we go to battle." He knows that engaging in dragon-on-dragon aerial combat with Vhagar is essentially suicidal.
But collateral damage would be unthinkable.
Right. So Rhaenyra decides to send envoys to secure the loyalty of the great houses, hoping to win by overwhelming alliance rather than fire.
Right, they need to win the political war to avoid initiating the physical one.
Exactly.
So Rhaenyra sends her teenage sons, Prince Jaehaerys, her eldest and heir, known as Jace, and her younger son, Prince Lucerys, known as Luke. They are sent as messengers.
But she is terrified for them.
Absolutely. She makes them swear a solemn oath on the most holy book of their faith that they will not engage in any fighting. They are strictly, exclusively envoys.
But that brings us to the tragedy at Storm's End. Young Prince Luke, who is 14 years old, flies his very young, very small dragon, Arrax, down to the coastal fortress of Storm's End.
Just a delivery boy, basically.
Right. His mission is just to deliver a letter to Lord Boros Baratheon, remind him of his oaths, and secure his loyalty. But when Luke lands in the courtyard, he looks up, and the castle is already shadowed by this massive, terrifying silhouette.
Vhagar.
Prince Aemon, the new King Aegon's younger brother, the rider of Vhagar, is already there.
And this is the precise moment the illusion of the rules of war completely shatters.
Yeah.
Historically, universally, envoys are sacred. You do not harm a messenger, no matter how bitter the conflict.
Right. It's the one rule everyone agrees on.
Exactly. To his credit, Lord Boros technically honors this rule inside his castle walls. He stops Aemon from physically attacking Luke in his hall.
But
then, Boros essentially washes his hands of whatever happens outside his doors. He tells Luke to leave, and he lets Aemon follow him out into a raging apocalyptic thunderstorm.
I am trying to visualize the sheer terror of this from a 14-year-old's perspective.
It's nightmare fuel.
Luke is on Arrax, a dragon that is maybe a fifth the size of Vhagar. Arrax is agile, sure, but the weather is atrocious. Gale-force winds, pouring rain, lightning. Arrax is struggling just to stay aloft.
Barely flying.
And then out of the clouds comes this ancient gargantuan predator. Vhagar catches the smaller dragon over the bay, and it's not even a fight, it's just an execution.
It really is.
Vhagar's jaws snap shut, and both Arrax and Prince Luke are completely obliterated.
Yeah.
Their broken pieces wash up on the shore days later.
It's a sickening escalation.
But here's where it gets really interesting. I really need to ask you about the psychology here.
Okay.
Was Aemon's action a calculated military strike to eliminate an enemy asset? Or was Aemon just a hot-headed, arrogant bully who fundamentally didn't realize that killing the opposing leader's son would ignite a war of total annihilation?
It's a vital question, and historians debate it endlessly. You have to look at their history together. Aemon had a deep personal vendetta against Luke.
From when they were kids.
Right. Years earlier, during a childhood brawl, Luke had slashed out Aemon's eye with a dagger.
Oh.
Aemon now wears a sapphire in the empty socket. So there is a festering, incredibly toxic resentment there. He wanted to humiliate Luke. He wanted to terrify him.
But killing him?
Well, from a strategic standpoint, killing Rhaenyra's son while he's acting as an envoy is an act of colossal recklessness.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Whether Aemon consciously intended to murder him or if he just wanted to chase him through the storm and lost control of his massive, bloodthirsty dragon, the result is exactly the same.
Dead is dead.
Right. It is an atrocity that demands a response in kind. You cannot simply send a strongly worded diplomatic protest after your teenage son is eaten by a
Oh,
dragon.
no, you absolutely cannot. If you connect this to the broader geopolitical picture, Aemon's action instantly transforms Rhaenyra's political grievance into a mother's blinding, all-consuming grief and rage.
Yes.
It moves the conflict from a dispute over legal succession into an unmitigable blood feud. And that leads directly into what is undoubtedly the darkest, most stomach-churning retaliation of the entire conflict.
It's so bad.
Because Rhaenyra's side isn't going to attack an army in response to this, they are going to extract an eye for an eye.
Literally.
Yes.
Prince Daemon, Rhaenyra's husband, is stationed at a forward operating base at Harrenhal. When he hears about Luke's death, he sends a raven to Rhaenyra with a chilling, simple promise. An eye for an eye, a son for a son. Lucery shall be avenged.
He doesn't formulate a battle plan.
No.
He uses his old, deep ties to the criminal underworld in the capital city of King's Landing. He hires 2 assassins, known to history only by their aliases Blood and Cheese.
It sounds almost theatrical, but the reality is horrific.
It is. Blood is a disgraced, brutal, former city guardsman, basically a butcher. Cheese is a rat catcher who knows the intricate, forgotten, secret tunnels built deep inside the walls of the Red Keep by a paranoid former king.
So they use these tunnels to completely bypass all the heavy external security.
Right.
They don't try to go after King Aegon himself, because he is surrounded by the Kingsguard at all times. Instead, they sneak directly into the private chambers of Queen Alicent, the king's mother.
Just sneak right in.
They bind her, gag her, and they just wait. They know the routine. They know that every evening, King Aegon's wife, Queen Helena, brings her 3 young children, toddlers, basically into that room to say goodnight to their grandmother.
If you are listening to this and feeling slightly sick to your stomach, you really should be.
Yeah.
We are so used to historical wars being fought on battlefields with armies and banners, but you have to understand the terrifying paradigm shift happening right here. The battlefield has just moved into a child's bedroom.
It's chilling.
The psychology of what Blood and Cheese do is what makes it so uniquely devastating. This is not a military casualty. This is deliberate psychological torture designed to entirely break the enemy's spirit.
Blood and Cheese trap Queen Helena and her children. And they don't just kill one of them quickly. They force the mother to choose.
That's the worst part.
They tell Helena she has to pick which of her young sons will be murdered to balance the scales for Luke.
It is essentially the cruelest Sophie's choice imaginable, weaponized as a tool of war. They tell her, pick one, or we kill all of them, and then we'll assault you.
Helena is weeping, begging them to kill her instead.
Of course.
But they refuse. They force her to point. Eventually, broken, she points to her youngest son, Mailer. Maybe she thinks he's too young to understand what's happening. Maybe she thinks the older son, Jaehaerys, is the heir and must be protected. We'll never know.
But the cruelty doesn't stop there. The rat catcher, Cheese, leans down and whispers to the little boy Mailer, "You hear that, little boy? Your mama wants you dead."
Ugh, oh, good.
And then the swordsman, Blood, ignores Mailer entirely. He swings his sword and strikes off the head of the eldest son, Prince Jaehaerys, in a single blow.
And then they just leave.
Yeah.
They take the head, use the secret tunnels, and flee, leaving the family physically alive but entirely irreparably destroyed.
It's awful.
I struggle to even comprehend that level of orchestrated cruelty. It's so far beyond the pale of standard warfare.
You really have to consider how measured retaliation almost always spirals into disproportionate atrocity in civil conflicts.
That's a great point.
Daemon thought he was neatly balancing a ledger, one royal prince for one royal prince, but the collateral damage is absolute. Queen Helena survives the night, but her mind completely shatters.
She's never the same.
She never recovers, she refuses to eat, she won't bathe, and she can't even look at her surviving son Mailer because she is tormented by the knowledge that she actively condemned him to death.
And strictly from a cold, calculating, strategic standpoint, this horrific act removes her completely from the board.
Yes, it does.
Helena isn't just a queen, she's a dragon rider. Her dragon, Dreamfire, is massive and formidable. But because Helena goes mad, she never mounts her dragon, she never flies to war.
So the Greens lose a major biological asset, not through physical destruction, but through the psychological annihilation of its operator.
It also has profound political ramifications down the line that the Blacks did not foresee.
Right, the optics.
The brutal murder of an innocent child in his grandmother's bedroom alienates the common people of King's Landing. The small folk might not care who sits on the throne, but they understand the horror of a butchered toddler.
Absolutely.
It seeds a deep, simmering disgust and horror that will eventually boil over against the ruling class entirely.
So, diplomacy is dead, envoys are dead. The royal families are now engaged in the targeted assassination of toddlers in their bedrooms.
The gloves are totally off.
The simmering tension is completely over. The actual armies are finally going to clash, and the dragons, these living superweapons, are going to take to the sky in open combat.
Which brings us to Rook's Rest.
Yes. Up to this point, King Aegon has been growing increasingly furious and impatient with his grandfather, Otto Hightower.
Right.
Otto is the hand of the king, and he's still trying to use diplomacy, alliances, and blockades to win the war slowly. Aegon looks at his murdered son and says, "Enough."
He's done waiting.
He fires Otto and names Sir Criston Cole, the man who slit Lord Beesbury's throat, as his new hand.
Cole is a blunt instrument, a man of action.
Very much so.
He declares that the time for writing letters is over. He marches a host of soldiers out of the capital and begins actively attacking Rhaenyra's mainland allies. He specifically targets a coastal castle called Rook's Rest.
Right.
He burns the surrounding fields, slaughters the peasants, and lays siege to the walls.
And the Lord of Rook's Rest, Lord Staunton, sends a desperate, frantic plea across the bay to Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, begging for help.
Now, Rhaenyra can't go herself. She's still physically and emotionally recovering from the traumatic stillbirth of Visenya and the grief of losing Luke, and she absolutely refuses to send her remaining young sons.
Which is understandable.
So, Princess Rhaenys volunteers. Rhaenys is known as the queen who never was because she was passed over for the throne years ago due to her gender.
She's a veteran.
She's an incredibly fierce, experienced woman. She flies her dragon, Meleys the Red Queen, across the bay to break the siege.
But the entire siege of Rook's Rest is a trap.
Wait, explain that to me. Why would Cole purposefully bait a dragon attack against his own infantry?
Because Sir Criston Cole wanted Rhaenyra to send a dragon.
Oh.
He knew his foot soldiers couldn't take down Meleys. He brought them there as bait. Because waiting in the skies, high above Rook's Rest, hidden in the clouds, are King Aegon on his golden dragon, Sunfire, and Prince Aemon on the massive Vhagar.
Just waiting to pounce.
As soon as Rhaenys begins burning Cole's soldiers, the two green dragons swoop down and ambush her.
And Rhaenys, realizing she's flown directly into a 2-on-1 ambush with the largest dragon in the world, doesn't run.
No, she doesn't flinch.
She knows she's facing impossible odds, but with a crack of her whip, she turns Meleys toward the enemy. It's a spectacular, horrifying mid-air collision.
It is.
I want to evolve that WMD analogy for a second. Think of this like an aerial dogfight, but instead of jet fighters firing missiles from miles away, you have biological deterrents tearing into each other with claws and teeth. And when they inevitably lose altitude, they crash directly into the infantry battlefield below.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the concept of mutually assured destruction as it applies to these beasts. Throwing dragons at each other guarantees massive collateral damage.
Yeah.
When these three massive dragons lock together and crash to the earth, the impact is so catastrophic that stones fall from the battlements of the castle half a league away.
That's insane.
800 of Cole's men on the ground are instantly incinerated or crushed by the falling bodies.
Meleys, Rhaenys' dragon, is ripped to pieces by Vhagar's jaws. Princess Rhaenys herself is burned completely beyond recognition, dying fearlessly in the flames beside her mount.
Rhaenyra loses her most experienced rider.
But the Greens pay a staggering, horrifying price for this victory.
They do. Vhagar is the only dragon to walk away unharmed. King Aegon and his young dragon Sunfire are utterly devastated by the crash and the fire.
Aegon gets mangled.
Aegon suffers broken ribs, a shattered hip, and horrific burns covering half his body. The dragonfire from Meleys burned so hot that Aegon's armor literally melted into his flesh.
Ugh, melting armor.
He is bedridden, screaming in agonizing pain for the rest of the year, completely reliant on milk of the poppy, their version of morphine, just to survive.
And his dragon.
His dragon, Sunfire, has a wing half torn off and is completely grounded. They have to leave the dragon in the ashes of the battlefield to feed on the dead soldiers.
So let me push back on Cole's supposed brilliant strategy here. I'm struggling to understand the logic.
Okay, sure.
Did Sir Criston Cole actually plan for his king to be used as bait, knowing the king would likely get permanently maimed or killed? Or was Aemon the true mastermind here, holding Vhagar back in the clouds, letting his brother take the brunt of Meleys' attack before swooping in to finish the job?
It is one of the most hotly debated tactical maneuvers of the war.
I mean, it looks suspicious, right?
Very. Aemon certainly benefits the most from the outcome. With Aegon bedridden and incapacitated by painkillers, Aemon takes up the Conqueror's crown, puts it on his own head, and names himself Prince Regent.
He takes charge.
He essentially assumes total control of the realm. Whether he deliberately delayed his attack to let Aegon take the hit, or if it was just the chaotic, uncontrollable nature of dragon combat, the result is exactly the same. Aemon is now in charge. And Aemon is far more ruthless and far less predictable than Aegon.
But because Aegon is down and his dragon Sunfire is grounded, Rhaenyra's side senses a massive, fleeting opportunity.
Yeah.
The Greens are down to just Vhagar, plus one much younger dragon down in the south with another brother. Rhaenyra has more dragons safely housed on Dragonstone. But she has a critical, fundamental problem. She doesn't have enough Targaryen riders to fly them.
No, she doesn't.
Which brings us to a tactical decision so radical it undermines the entire foundation of their society, the sowing of the seeds.
This is a desperate plan, conceived by Rhaenyra's eldest surviving son, Prince Jace. On the island of Dragonstone, there are several fully grown, riderless dragons.
Just hanging out.
Right. Some previously belonged for riders who died of old age, like Vermithor and Silverwing, who belonged to the old king and his queen. Some are completely wild beasts that have never been ridden, like Sheepstealer and a terrifying cannibalistic dragon literally named the Cannibal.
Fitting name.
Jace needs these super weapons in the sky to overwhelm Vhagar.
But the Targaryens have maintained absolute dictatorial power over this continent for centuries, based on a very specific, carefully curated myth.
The bloodline myth.
That only pure-blooded Targaryen royalty possessed the magical ability to ride dragons. They intermarry, brother to sister, generation after generation, specifically to keep this bloodline pure and to maintain their monopoly on the nuclear launch codes.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here from a sociological standpoint is how the desperation of war forces a ruling class to voluntarily dismantle its own mythology. Jace makes a public decree. He offers lands, knighthoods, and immense wealth to any dragonseed, which is a polite term for the bastards of Valyrian descent living among the small folk on the island who can successfully claim and ride a dragon.
Anybody who wants to try.
He is breaking the royal monopoly on power just to win a short-term military advantage.
It's insane. It's like a modern military realizing they're losing a conventional war, so they just start handing out the launch codes to nuclear silos or random local mercenaries, hoping they'll aim them at the enemy.
It is a massive geopolitical gamble.
And the immediate visceral cost is horrific. Dozens of people, squires, tavern knights, ordinary peasants are burned alive or eaten trying to tame these beasts.
The historical accounts are gruesome. The wild dragon known as the Cannibal literally eats a man named Silver Denise and then eats the sons who were trying to staunch their father's wounds.
Oh my.
It's a slaughterhouse. But Jace's gamble does yield results. 4 new riders emerge from the carnage.
Who are they?
A massive, illiterate blacksmith's bastard named Hugh the Hammer manages to claim Vermithor, one of the oldest and largest dragons.
Wow.
A drunken man-at-arms named Ulf the White claims Silverwing. A young 15-year-old sailor named Adam of Hull claims Seasmoke.
And then there's my absolute favorite. A skinny, foul-mouthed, 16-year-old peasant girl named Nettles.
Ah, yes.
She doesn't have silver hair or purple eyes. She doesn't use Targaryen blood magic or sing Valyrian songs to claim her dragon. She just brings a freshly slaughtered sheep to the wild dragon sheep stealer every single morning.
Feeds it.
She leaves the meat, backs away, and repeats the process day after day until the dragon gets used to her presence. It's not magic. It's purely behavioral conditioning.
And that detail completely undercuts the mystical superiority that Targaryens claim to possess.
Totally destroys it.
If a common peasant girl can tame a dragon of mass destruction with nothing but mutton and patience, what makes the royal family so special? Why should they rule?
Exactly. I want you, the listener, to ponder that dynamic for a second. How long will a blacksmith like Hugh or a drunkard like Ulf take orders from a queen once they realize they are the ones holding the reins to the ultimate weapon?
Not long at all.
You have just handed God's level tower to people who have absolutely no vested interest in the survival of your political institutions.
It is a ticking time bomb of monumental proportions. But in the short term, it gives Rhaenyra the sheer firepower she desperately needs.
Which she needs right now.
Because a massive new threat has appeared from across the narrow sea. Otto Hightower's diplomacy, The alliances he was building before King Aegon fired him, they finally pay off.
He was busy.
The Triarchy, a powerful alliance of free cities from the eastern continent, sends a massive fleet of warships to break the naval blockade Rhaenyra's fleet has established.
This kicks off the Battle of the Gullet, which is one of the bloodiest naval engagements in history.
Yeah.
And it starts with a terrible coincidence. The Triarchy fleet happens to intercept a lone ship trying to slip past the blockade. That ship is carrying Rhaenyra's two youngest sons, whom she was trying to send away to safety in Essos.
Just terrible luck.
The youngest boy, Viserys, is captured by the enemy fleet. The older boy, Aegon the Younger, barely escapes by clinging to the neck of his very young dragon, Stormcloud. The dragon is peppered with arrows, flies the boy back to Dragonstone, and then dies of its wounds.
When Prince Jace realizes his younger brothers have been attacked, he responds with overwhelming force. He leads his newly recruited dragonseeds into battle.
Right.
5 dragons descend on the Triarchy fleet. At first, it's an absolute slaughter. The dragons are burning galleys left and right, turning the sea into boiling cauldrons. The sailors of the free cities are terrified. They've never fought dragons before.
But then disaster strikes. The smoke is incredibly thick, the air is chaotic with arrows and grappling lines. Jace flies his dragon Vermax too low over the burning ships.
Way too low.
The historical accounts differ. Maybe Vermax took a crossbow bolt to the eye, maybe a grappling hook tore the dragon's belly open, but Vermax crashes into the sea, taking a burning galley down with him.
Just chaos.
Jace leaps free of the saddle, but as he's thrashing in the water, he is shot through the neck by crossbowmen. Rhaenyra loses her eldest son, her most capable commander, and her heir.
Not only that, but the Triarchy fleet, though suffering massive casualties from the dragonfire, manages to push through.
They keep going.
They bypass Dragonstone and attack Driftmark, the island seat of Rhaenyra's greatest ally, Lord Corlys Velaryon. They sack the town, burn the docks, kill thousands, and completely decimate the Velaryon fleet, which was the backbone of Rhaenyra's naval power.
So Rhaenyra receives the news. Her heir is dead. Her youngest son is captured, presumed dead. That's 3 sons she has lost to this war.
It's just blow after blow.
The grief completely hardens her. She decides that the time for caution, the time for alliances and blockades, is over. She realizes that Aemond and Sir Criston Cole have marched the main Green Army out of the capital into the Riverlands,
leaving the city open.
King's Landing is virtually undefended from the air. So Rhaenyra, alongside Daemon, launches a surprise, all-out aerial assault on the capital city with their 6 dragons.
The psychological impact of the citizens of King's Landing waking up to see 6 fully grown dragons circling the Red Keep, it breaks the city's defenses almost immediately.
I bet it did.
There's no grand siege. The City Watch, the thousands of men known as the Gold Cloaks, actually betray the Greens.
Oh, wow.
They were previously commanded by Prince Daemon years ago, and they still harbor deep loyalty to him. They turn their swords on their green commanders and open the city gates from the inside. The capital falls in less than a day.
Queen Alicent, trapped in the Red Keep, realizes resistance is utterly futile and surrenders the keys to the castle. Rhaenyra finally walks into the throne room and takes the Iron Throne.
She gets her prize.
She has done it.
Yeah.
She has won back her father's seat. But the victory turns to ash in her mouth immediately because she finds that King Aegon has vanished.
He's gone.
The Master of Whisperers, Larry Strong, smuggled the crippled king and his remaining children out of the city through hidden passages during the confusion.
And this highlights the deep, inescapable irony of her victory. She takes the capital, yes, but her enemy's king is still, at large, a symbol for resistance to rally around.
Exactly.
Her naval fleet is crippled, her heir is dead, and most pressingly, the royal treasury is completely empty because the Greens shipped all the gold away before she got there.
So if you're keeping track at home, what does this actually mean strategically? It means seizing the capital isn't the end of the war, it's just adopting a highly vulnerable, massively expensive defensive position.
You're just sitting there.
It's like taking the enemy's king in chess, only to realize the rules have fundamentally changed. The king you captured is just a wooden decoy, and the enemy's pawns are all armed with rocket launchers and surrounding the board.
Furthermore, because the treasury is completely bare, Rhaenyra is forced to enact immediate, crushing taxes on the small folk of King's Landing just to fund her continued war efforts and feed her dragons.
Which they hate.
The people of the city who might have welcomed her initially, who hated the Greens for the murder of the toddlers, quickly turn against her. They are starving, and she is taxing them into the dirt.
Right.
They give her the nickname King Maegor with Teats, a reference to one of the most brutal, hated tyrants in all of Targaryen history.
And to make matters worse, she is physically rejected by the ultimate symbol of power.
The Iron Throne itself?
The Iron Throne is made of the melted, twisted swords of conquered enemies. It is notoriously jagged. The histories say that when Rhaenyra sits on it, the blades cut her. She leaves the throne room with her hands and legs dripping with blood.
Which is very symbolic.
In the deep mythology of Westeros, the throne rejecting you, cutting you, is a divine sign that you are unfit to rule.
So she is sitting on a throne that is literally bleeding her, taxing a starving populace that hates her, desperately searching for a hidden king, while the massive green armies she ignored are wreaking absolute havoc in the countryside.
Which brings us to the bloodiest phase of the war. Attrition, betrayal, and the legendary clash above the God's Eye.
Prince Aemond, flying the gargantuan Vhagar, essentially abandons his infantry and wages a one-man terror campaign in the Riverlands.
Just burning everything.
He isn't fighting armies, he is burning villages, incinerating castles, and destroying crops, trying to bait Rhaenyra into sending her dragons out to fight him one-on-one.
Right.
Meanwhile, his commander, Sir Criston Cole, is left trying to march his army south. But without Vhagar for air support, Cole's army is ambushed and completely annihilated by Rhaenyra's northern and riverland allies at a slaughter known as the Fish Feed.
So Cole is finally gone.
Cole himself is killed, shot full of arrows.
But the real turning point, the moment where Rhaenyra's gambles spectacularly fail, happens in the south, at a bustling market town called Tumbleton.
Ah, Tumbleton.
The Greens have a massive fresh army marching on King's Landing from the Reach. They are supported by the youngest Green Prince, Daeron, riding his dragon, Targaryen. Rhaenyra knows she has to stop this army, so she sends two of her newly minted dragonseeds, Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White, riding the massive Vermithor and Silverwing to defend Tumbleton.
And this is where the ticking time bomb of arming commoners explodes in Rhaenyra's face. The two betrayers, as they become known to history, switch sides in the middle of the battle.
Mid-battle.
For reasons we don't fully understand, likely immense greed, promises of lordship, and raw arrogance, Hugh and Ulf turn their dragons on Rhaenyra's army. They completely obliterate the men they were sent to protect and brutally sack the town of Tumbleton.
It's a total betrayal.
Hugh the Hammer, a blacksmith's bastard, looks around at the devastation he's caused, realizes he controls the second largest dragon in the world, and decides that he shouldn't just be a lord, he decides he wants to be a king.
The nuclear mercenaries have realized they hold all the cards. They don't need the Targaryens anymore. And the news of this betrayal back at King's Landing absolutely shatters whatever remained of Rhaenyra's sanity.
Yes, she breaks.
Her paranoia explodes. She concludes, with a terrifying sort of twisted logic, that if two baseborn dragon seeds are traitors, then all the baseborn dragon seeds must be traitors waiting to stab her in the back.
She orders the immediate arrest of Adam Valerian, the young boy who claimed sea smoke, even though Adam has been fiercely, unquestionably loyal.
Which is just sad.
She also sends a raven to Maidenpool, demanding the head of the teenage girl, Nettles.
Which is a fatal strategic error born of pure paranoia. Adam is warned just in time. He manages to escape on his dragon before the guards can arrest him.
Barely escapes.
But Rhaenyra's hand of the king, Lord Corlys Valerian, who had vouched for Adam's loyalty, is furious and speaks out against her.
Bad move.
Rhaenyra throws him in the black cells. This single action alienates the entire Valerian fleet, her biggest remaining military asset. They abandon her cause immediately.
And the order to execute Nettles has even more devastating, deeply personal consequences. Nettles is stationed at Maidenpool with Prince Daemon. They have been hunting Aemon and Vhagar together. The local lord shows Daemon Rhaenyra's royal execution order. Daemon reads it, realizes his wife has gone completely mad, calls the letter a queen's words, a whore's work, and he defies the crown.
He lets her go.
He lets Nettles escape on Sheepstealer. They part ways in tears. Some say they were lovers, some say he viewed her as a daughter, and she flies off into the mountains, disappearing from history.
By giving in to this blinding paranoia, Rhaenyra systematically destroys her own coalition from the inside out.
Yeah.
Think about it. She loses the Valerian fleet, she loses the dragon Seasmoke, she loses the dragon Sheepstealer, and most critically, she breaks her bond with her husband and most experienced commander, Prince Daemon.
Daemon knows his time is up. He sends a public message challenging Aemon to meet him at the ruined, cursed castle of Harrenhal to settle it once and for all.
The final showdown.
Daemon waits there alone for 14 days. He doesn't gather an army. He just waits. Finally, Aemon arrives on the massive Vhagar, bringing his pregnant lover, a mysterious woman named Alice Rivers, with him.
The ensuing battle, the Battle Above the God's Eye, is arguably the most dramatic, mythological single combat of the entire war.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the aging, world-weary rogue demon on the smaller, serpentine, incredibly fierce dragon Caraxes against the young, arrogant, one-eyed Aemond on the gargantuan Vhagar. They take to the sky as the sun is setting over the massive lake next to Harrenhal.
It's pure cinematic tragedy, but the tactics are fascinating. They fly higher and higher, disappearing into the clouds. Daemon uses his decades of combat experience to outmaneuver the larger beast.
Because Caraxes is faster.
Yes. He uses the glare of the setting sun to hide in Aemon's blind spot. Remember, Aemon only has one eye.
Right, the sapphire eye.
Suddenly, Caraxes dive bombs Vhagar from above, locking his jaws into the larger dragon's thick neck. But Vhagar's sheer mass and claws are ripping Caraxes apart. They are locked together in a death spiral, plummeting toward the dark water of the lake.
And this is where we see the ultimate poetic realization of the WMD metaphor. Daemon recognizes that Vhagar is too big to be killed by standard dragon fire or bites.
He knows it's a one-way trip.
He realizes the only way to neutralize the ultimate weapon is to sacrifice himself and his own weapon in the process. As they are falling, wind-roaring, dragon-screaming Daemon unchains himself from his saddle.
Midair.
He leaps from Caraxes onto Vhagar's back in midair. He rips off Aemon's helmet, revealing the sapphire eye, and drives his Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister, straight through Aemon's blind socket, deep into his brain.
And half a second later, all four of them, 2 Targaryen princes, 2 legendary dragons, slam into the lake with an impact so massive it sends a geyser of water higher than the blackened towers of Harrenhal.
That's just wild.
Both dragons die, both riders die. It is mutually assured destruction in its purest, most literal form.
I have to ask you, though, looking at Daemon's character arc, was that leap a heroic sacrifice to save Rhaenyra's cause by taking out her biggest threat? Or was it the final nihilistic act of an old warlord who knew his era was over, his wife was mad, his lover was gone, and he just wanted to go out in a blaze of mythological glory?
It's undoubtedly a complex combination of both. Daemon had lived a life entirely defined by violence, ambition, and a twisted sense of Targaryen supremacy. He saw that his cause was crumbling from within. He engineered his own mythic exit, ensuring his name would be sung about for centuries, while simultaneously executing a vital tactical strike.
Taking out Vhagar.
He took the enemy's biggest piece off the board, but he paid with his life to do it.
But while the Targaryen royalty are literally tearing each other to pieces in the sky, the ordinary starving people back in King's Landing have reached their absolute breaking point.
Yes, they have.
They don't care about the poetry of dragons falling into lakes. They care about bread. Which brings us to the most defining moment of the collapse, the storming of the dragon pit.
The atmosphere in the capital is incredibly volatile. The people are starving due to Rhaenyra's exorbitant taxes. The Valyrian fleet is gone, so trade is dead.
Nothing is coming in.
And they are terrified because they know a green army with dragons is slowly marching toward the city. Then, a horrific catalyst occurs. The beloved Queen Helaena, who has been kept as a prisoner in the Red Keep, completely mad since Blood and Cheese murdered her son, throws herself out a window and dies, impaled on the iron spikes of the dry moat below.
And the rumor immediately spreads through the city like wildfire that Rhaenyra had her murdered. This is the spark that finally ignites the powder keg.
The city just erupts.
A massive, bloody riot breaks out in the streets. And out of this chaos emerges a figure known as the Shepherd. He's a one-handed, ragged prophet who starts preaching a radically different message.
Not political, but religious.
Right. He doesn't say support the Greens or support the Blacks. He says the Targaryens are an abomination, the dragons themselves are literal demons sent from hell, and they are the root cause of all human suffering.
The shepherd stands in the plaza and points up at the dragon pit. The dragon pit is this massive, Colosseum-like domed structure on the hill where 4 of Rhaenyra's dragons are chained up for safekeeping.
Just locked in there.
He tells the mob that the only way to cleanse their sins and save their city from the coming fire is to bathe in dragon's blood. And tens of thousands of starving, desperate, religiously frenzied people actually listen to him.
They march up the hill.
They march up the hill toward the dragon pit, armed with pitchforks, axes, torches, and butcher's cleavers.
Up in the safety of the Red Keep, Rhaenyra is watching this massive mob swarm the hill. Her teenage son, Prince Joffrey, begs her to let him fly his dragon, Tyraxes, who is trapped inside the pit, to save the others.
But she says no.
Rhaenyra utterly refuses. She locks him in his room, so Joffrey disobeys her. He sneaks out, but he doesn't have time to get to the dragon pit. In his desperation, he jumps onto Rhaenyra's own dragon, Syrax, who is kept in the castle courtyard.
Which is a fatal misunderstanding of how these creatures operate. Dragons are not horses.
Right, you can't just share.
You cannot just jump on another person's dragon. They only bond with one rider at a time. Syrax rejects him instantly. She bucks wildly in the air, twisting and snapping, trying to throw Joffrey off her back.
Poor kid.
High above the chaotic, burning streets of Flea Bottom, Joffrey loses his grip. He plunges hundreds of feet to his death, crashing onto a rooftop. Rhaenyra watches from the walls as her fourth son dies.
Meanwhile, the mob manages to break down the massive oak and iron doors of the dragon pit. I want you to really try to visualize the claustrophobic horror of what happens inside.
It's chaotic.
You have 4 dragons, Shrykos, Morgul, Tyraxes, and Helianda's dragon Dreamfire chained to the floor by their necks and legs. They cannot fly away. They're facing thousands of maniacal humans pouring into an enclosed, echoing space.
We need to look at the sheer physics of this scenario. A dragon can incinerate 50 men in a single breath of fire, but while it's breathing fire in one direction, 200 men are swarming its flanks, hacking at its wings with axes, throw spears into its eyes, wrapping chains around its jaws.
There are just too many of them.
As the court fool Mushroom noted in his historical account, 1,000 rats can bring down a bear.
It is absolute carnage. The pit is filled with smoke, screaming, and roasted flesh. But the humans just keep coming over the piles of their own dead. One by one, the mob hacks the dragons to pieces.
Shrykos is killed by a woodsman who buries an axe in her skull.
Brutal.
Morgul is killed by a heavily armored knight who charges right into the dragon's flames, thrusting his spear into its eye before burning to death.
And Tyraxes.
Tyraxes retreats into his lair, burning hundreds, but gets tangled in his own chains and is slaughtered.
And finally, Dreamfire, the oldest and largest dragon in the pit. She breaks her chains. She is roaring, flying around the enclosed stadium, breathing fire everywhere. In her panic and rage, she flies straight up, trying to smash through the ceiling to escape.
She hits the roof.
She hits the massive stone dome with such incredible force that the entire structure cracks and collapses inward, crushing her and thousands of the rioters beneath thousands of tons of rubble.
It's the thematic core of the entire Civil War. The Targaryens' absolute dictatorial power was predicated entirely on the myth that their dragons made them invincible gods. But the small folk, driven mad by fear, starvation, and religious fervor, prove that this is a lie.
Right.
If you throw enough bodies at a dragon, the dragon dies.
The single night permanently cripples Targaryen power for the rest of history. For generations, the dragons were their ultimate deterrent. Now, 4 of them are dead in a pile of rubble, killed by angry peasants armed with farming tools.
It really is a turning point.
It is explicitly like the storming of the Bastille, isn't it? But instead of a stone prison representing royal tyranny, the peasants are physically butchering the literal biological weapons that enforce that tyranny.
That's a perfect analogy.
It proves that the consent of the governed has a breaking point, and when that point is reached, even literal fire-breathing monsters aren't enough to stop the momentum of the mob.
And the tragedy of that night is compounded by one final bizarre event. Rhaenyra's dragon, Syrax, having thrown Joffrey, flies over to the smoking ruins of the dragon pit.
Yeah, what was she doing?
Instead of staying safely in the air and raining fire down on the mob to avenge her kin, Syrax inexplicably lands on the ground to fight them tooth and claw. Surrounded by the horde, she too is eventually swarmed, overwhelmed, and killed.
So Rhaenyra loses 5 dragons in a single night.
5 dragons.
Rhaenyra has now lost her dragons, she has lost her capital city, and she has lost almost all of her sons. She is a broken woman. She flees the city in the dead of night with a handful of guards and her last remaining son, Aegon the Younger.
She's running for her life.
But the war isn't quite over in the south. The massive Green Army is still out there. This leads us to the final bitter resolution, Second Tumbleton and the bitter end.
Down in the ruined town of Tumbleton, the Green Army is completely paralyzed. The 2 betrayers, Hugh and Ulf, are out of control.
Right, the mercenaries.
Hugh is openly wearing a crown of black iron, demanding to be recognized as king because he rides Vermithor. The true-born lords of the Green faction, known as the Caltrops, realize these up-jumped dragon riders are a massive liability. They plot to assassinate them to regain control of their army.
But before the Caltrops can execute their assassination plot, the town is attacked in the dead of night. And the attacker is none other than Adam Balerion, riding his dragon sea smoke.
Adam of Hull.
Remember him. He's the loyal dragon seed that Rhaenyra ordered, arrested out of fear paranoia. Adam escaped, flew across the Riverlands, pieced together a ragtag army of Rhaenyra's loyalists, and launched a desperate surprise attack on Tumbleton,
Why did he do it?
just to prove that he wasn't a traitor.
It is an incredibly tragic quest for redemption. Adam attacks the sleeping Green camp. The dragon sea smoke sets the tents ablaze. In the absolute chaos on the ground, the caltrops use the distraction to enact their plot.
They go for Hugh.
A knight named John Roxton confronts Hugh the Hammer and stabs him through the belly with a Valyrian steel sword.
And what about Ulf?
Ulf the White actually sleeps through the entire battle because he is blackout drunk, and he is poisoned the next day by a Green Knight who drinks the poison wine himself just to prove it's safe.
Wow, but the real spectacle of this battle is in the sky. Adam on sea smoke engages Prince Darren's young dragon Targaryen. They are dancing in the air, a deadly, beautiful dogfight in the dark.
But then Vermithor wakes up.
Right, Vermithor, the massive bronze dragon that belonged to the murdered Hugh the Hammer, wakes up. Vermithor is riderless, enraged by the fire and confused. He just starts indiscriminately attacking everything on the ground, burning green and black soldiers alike.
Adam looks down and realizes that Vermithor is going to slaughter his entire army, so he makes a heroic, fatal choice.
He dive bombs him.
He turns his much smaller dragon, Sea Smoke, and dive bombs the massive Vermithor, driving the larger dragon into the mud. It is a suicide mission.
Definitely.
They're rolling around in the burning tents, tearing each other apart, and then the young dragon Targaryen crashes into them, joining the fray. It is a chaotic, three-way dragon fight thrashing on the ground.
And the result is total annihilation. Sea Smoke's head is literally ripped off. Vermithor tries to fly away with his prize, but his wings are shredded and he collapses and dies from his wounds.
And Targaryen
is mortally wounded, in agonizing pain, and has to be put out of her misery the next morning with arrows. All three biological superweapons are destroyed, and Adam Valerian dies a hero, saving King's Landing from the Green Army, proving his loyalty with his life.
But here is the heartbreaking part. Rhaenyra never knows this.
She has no idea.
As she flees north, she believes herself completely abandoned, betrayed by everyone, including Adam. She is forced to sell her own crown, her father's crown, just to buy passage on a merchant ship to return to the island of Dragonstone.
She thinks she'll be safe there.
She thinks she can find new dragon eggs, hatch them, and start the whole process over.
But she walks right into a trap. Sir Alfred Broom, a garrison knight on Dragonstone who felt passed over for promotion, betrayed her. He helped sneak King Aegon II back onto the island months ago.
Just waiting for her.
When Rhaenyra arrives, she is immediately captured by her own men. They drag her into the courtyard, and there, waiting for her, is her half-brother Aegon, sitting in a wooden chair because his legs are shattered, looking at the broken, mangled body of his dragon, Sunfire.
It is the grim, pathetic, inevitable conclusion to this arms race. The two monarchs finally meet again. Rhaenyra is a haggard, paranoid shell of herself who has lost her kingdom, her husband, and her children.
And Aegon isn't doing much better.
Aegon is a crippled, milk-of-the-poppy-addicted burn victim who can barely stand.
Aegon doesn't waste time with a trial. He doesn't give a grand speech. He has his men prick Rhaenyra's breast with a dagger so the smell of fresh blood rouses his half-dead dragon.
It's awful.
And then, in front of Rhaenyra's last surviving son, young Aegon the Younger, Sunfire bathes Rhaenyra in golden flame and devours her in 6 bites.
If we pull back and connect this to the bigger picture, this is the ultimate futility of the Dance of the Dragons. Aegon technically reclaims the throne. He's the winner.
Air quotes around winner.
Right. But his dragon, Sunfire, dies of its wounds shortly after eating Rhaenyra. Aegon himself only rules for 6 miserable months in constant excruciating pain before he is poisoned by his own men, who realize he is too broken and bitter to heal the realm.
Almost all the dragons in the world are dead. The 2 claimants to the throne are destroyed. The realm is in economic and physical ruins.
Yes.
The war achieved absolutely nothing except the near extinction of House Targaryen's magic and power. It's an incredible, massive tragedy that started with the secret council trying to control a rotting corpse in a dark room and ended with a crippled king feeding his sister to a crippled dragon.
And you have to ask yourself, why should we care about a fictional history of dragons?
Right, what's the point?
Because it is a timeless masterclass in human failing. It shows us how institutional secrecy breeds devastating conflict. It exposes the utter illusion of control over weapons of mass destruction. You know, you think you can aim a weapon until the weapon decides it wants to burn your own city.
It's unpredictable.
And it perfectly illustrates how the cycle of vengeance inevitably destroys the very prize the factions are fighting for.
The throne Rhaenyra and Aegon fought so bitterly over ended up rejecting and destroying them both.
Exactly.
And so, I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over today. With the dragons dead, the Targaryens are no longer living gods. They are just ordinary, vulnerable human beings sitting on a pointy metal chair.
Very vulnerable.
Think about what happens to a ruling class when the ultimate weapon that justified their absolute power simply vanishes from the world overnight. Are they still rulers by divine right, or are they merely ruling by momentum, just waiting for the people to realize the cage is actually unlocked?
It fundamentally changes the social contract. The illusion of exceptionalism is gone forever.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredibly deep dive. We always love unpacking these massive historical tapestries with you. Take that thought about power and momentum with you today, and we will catch you next time.